Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers, or whatever time it is when you're watching this. I have Thomas Cox with me today, who is the owner of Cox Capital and also the owner of Table and Time. Two very diverse things, but you'll hear the connection here shortly. Thomas, welcome to Opening Pathways.
Thank you so much, Tom.
I'm excited you were here. I've been looking forward to our
Yes, sir.
time together. And I just want to start at the beginning, and I want to understand a little about your story to get us started
Yeah.
here about the evolution to Cox Capital. It's a good story, and a little taste, no pun intended, of Table and Time.
Yeah.
And what I really want to know as you're telling the story is tell us what sparked these ideas to happen.
Yeah. Well, when kids get asked as they're growing up, middle school, high school, college, one of the questions is always, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Always. When I was 5, I knew I wanted to coach college football. I did. My dad was a legendary high school coach in the state of Alabama. It's really all I did, and I absolutely loved it. So I knew that's what I was going to do. I was an average grades kid in school, average grade kid in college, but I knew, and that's why I was there. I was there to coach football, and that's what I did. I loved it. Did it for 10 years post graduating from college, and absolutely loved it. I get about to the end of year 9, and I just felt the Lord speaking to me about like, hey, you need to go do something different, and we got out of coaching. And I remember there's the last season. It was like the 4th or 5th game of the year. And my boss walked in, and he is in a good mood that day. And he's like, hey, big boy, what do you think about doing? Because we had talked in the off season, like, hey, coach, let's reevaluate in December. I'm not sure. He walked in game 4 or 5, and I said, hey, coach, I'm done. I said, we're gonna get this thing to the end of the year, and we're gonna go do something else. He said, well, what are you gonna do? I said, I don't really know. So I quit and didn't have a job, which I don't advise having 2 kids at the time. You have 3 now. So we get out of that and start working at a church. I needed something to do, and the Lord gave us a job, and I worked there, and then I started meal planning. And so that really started the journey, Tom, of owning my own business and like not working for someone. I was still working at the church, but I was kind of doing my own thing. And so we started doing meal plans before meal plans were a thing. You could find a meal plan on your phone in less than 30 seconds doing that. And then we started doing meal prep, and we parlayed that into actually making food. And then we parlayed that into catering. And so there's a morph. You know, they always say that how you start in business is never how you end in business. And you've experienced that over your years as well. But we've morphed that thing, and it grew to catering. We feed a small college, and then we moved back to Birmingham. So, I mean, there's so many different twists and turns in that. But that was the start of that journey. And then as I became a business owner, Tom, I enjoyed the handful of things. I enjoyed not having a lid on what I could make financially. Number one, I enjoyed not having a lid on my freedom. Being able to go and do when I wanted to do it, how I wanted to do it, was freeing, even though there are some restrictions when you're on your own business, especially when you're small, because you got to do a lot of things. But it's something I can just say, no, we're not going to do that. I could just do that if I wanted to. So that's the snapshot of the beginning of that journey. But it was a fun. Those years were a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Now we're still involved in the food business, still own those businesses. I'm probably 5 or 6 hours a week doing that right now, which is I manage people and love on people and help with venue changes and high level stuff. But I'm not in there. My daughter this morning on the way to school, she says, do you like cooking, Dad? And I go, well, baby, I don't cook a whole lot anymore. And so, but I love the journey. The journey's been a lot of fun.
Yes. So I'm interested in us hearing a little bit before we go real deeper here
Yeah.
about Cox Capital.
Yeah. So 2016, all of my friends, okay, so there's all kinds of, and you've heard this term since we were kids, and you're a little older than I am, but you've heard it even when you were a kid, peer pressure. The kid down the road that gets you to smoke your first cigarette or drink your first beer, or the easy girl that wants you to touch her boobs or whatever, all that, the negative peer pressure. There's also a positive peer pressure, Tom. The people in your life that you see what they're doing, and you want either a piece of that or you want to be like that. I don't think it's envy. I don't think it's envy. I think it's aspiration in some ways. And so all my friends that either did well in their jobs or own their own businesses, they had these rental houses. And I was like, okay, what are they doing? So I was just starting to make a little bit more money. And I went to one of my buddies who's now one of my business partners. I said, we need to buy some rentals. I said, but we're not going to buy houses. I said, we're going to buy apartments, because I saw a guy and like him or love him or hate him. He really does a really good job what he does. His Grant Cardone, I heard on a video one day, he said, why would I own a bunch of houses when I can own one apartment complex? So I bought our first apartment complex, and that was really the start of like the finance and non-active, I guess you said non-active income part of my life. And then 2 years later, we bought another apartment complex. And then after that, I bought another one. And then when we had 3 apartments, we had kind of ridden that wave of the low interest rates. You remember how probably for 10 or 12 years, there was a huge dip in interest rates. Well, about the time I bought that third one, about a year later, interest rates started to go back up. And so I haven't bought anything since then. But in the meantime, I started doing private lending, coupled with a theory or a practice or a concept called infinite banking. So I started marrying the two with private money lending and infinite banking, and that's where the Cox Capital world really resides now, is in that finance. People ask me all the time, "What do you do? What do you do for a living?" I say, "Well, I do a lot of things, but a lot of what I do is in finance, the circulation of money." So that's the Cox Capital origin.
Yeah. So here's what I want to know. How is Thomas Cox fundamentally different today from the person who started doing those financial buying apartments and turning out to what Cox Capital is today? How have you changed?
Oh my gosh. The rooms I put myself in now are massively different. The people I surround myself with are massively different. I'll give you a great example. I'm on a constant mission to try to learn more, whatever. I read a pretty good bit. And so I'm trying to learn, okay, what are these other things that I'm not doing, or what am I doing that I can be better at? And so it's a constant iteration. Now it's a constant iteration of improving yourself, but a constant iteration of trying to learn more. Now, here's the hard part. You can't have shiny object syndrome. And Tom, you've got tons and tons of friends that have had shiny object syndrome. I got one of my best friends, Rock. His name's Rock. He and his wife own two or three hair salons, and they're madly successful. But let me tell you something. My boy Rock, he chases the shiny object all the time. He's just like that cat in that flashlight, just chasing that thing around. So you have to be careful when you are ambitious, not to chase the wrong thing, but to keep the main, like they said before, keep the main thing the main thing. That's been difficult sometimes, but being able to say no is incredibly important. So I guess to get back to your question, I'm constantly asking questions of like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? A great example that happened this week on Tuesday. So the finance part of what I do, I will raise money for funds. I will be like a fund manager and raise money in family, friends, and other people to put money into businesses. We got a roofing roll up that we're doing. And so this guy was in our group, and he was a friend of a friend, and he gave us some money to the group. Well, then he gave some more money. And so I started asking questions. Who is this guy? So I just called him. I said, hey, can we get together and learn more about what you do? He's like, yeah. Tom, I sat down for an hour with this guy. And for the first 45 minutes, he absolutely blew my mind. And I get in these finance conversations, and I understand finance. And he was saying things that I didn't know existed. I didn't know what terms meant. And I was like a third grade kid listening to, a college professor talk about physics. I was lost as last year's Easter eggs on some of this stuff. But I just constantly ask the questions of tell me about this. What does this mean? What does this mean? I know 15 times more than I did before that conversation on Tuesday. I do that a lot. And so that practice compounded on top of each other is a wonderful, wonderful practice, in my opinion, that we should do. How do I do that? Is probably your next question. How do I do that is I try to sit with people almost just about every day and eat lunch with somebody different. Most of the time, they never ask me any questions because I try to, this is a selfish thing, but I try to control the conversation in a way of asking the questions because I am an inquisitive human being.
Yes. Yeah. You know, viewers, we're going to get some wisdom from Thomas Cox today. In fact, I'm going to brand it. We're going to call it T Cox Talk.
That's
And
right.
we're going to get
Love it.
some wisdom as this podcast goes along. You know, Thomas, I want to know something. You know, when
Yeah.
I talk to people, it's very evident to me because I know it's true for me that someone was a very, very early role model in our life or an
Wow.
early influence in our life of who we are today. Who was that for you?
Oh my goodness. There are so many that were there for me. Um, the God's honest truth, Tom, is coaches. There are a handful of coaches that in my life were extremely influential for me. A guy named Jeff Smith. He's in the Hall of Fame in the state of Alabama, still coaching to this day. He coached me in high school. My dad had a massive influence on me. He was wonderful. A guy named Ted Darby was one of my first quarterback coaches in college. Pat Sullivan, who is another coach. I'm naming all these coaches because all the things that I've learned in the last probably 10 or 15 years are great, but like there's a base and a foundation of things that really, you know, it's the bedrock of what you built your house on. The Bible's really clear. Don't build your house on sand, build it on the rock. The bedrock of my mentors and the people that influenced me were coaches. The thing about coaches are this. Coaches are extremely detailed most of the time, and they're extremely hardworking. Am I extremely detailed? Yes, in some things not. But the hardworking part, and I'll say this too, is another guy that I was massively influenced by was a guy named Mark Tressman. And I worked for Mark at NC State for 2 years. He was probably one of the most relentless workers I've ever seen in my life. And I just saw it. And as the guy that worked for him, I had to sit next to him for 90 hours a week. And I just saw it, Tom. And I saw the success he had before, and I saw the success he had afterwards. And he was an example. He was an example. And all those guys in the first bedrock of my life, they were massive, massive mentors to me. From a financial aspect, the guy named Justin Kraft, he has been absolutely wonderful for me. He's helped me learn about the insurance business and infant banking and what that concept is. He was taught by the guy named Nelson Nash. And just Mike Schwally, a guy that I work with even to this day, he helps me, picks up the phone and answers these questions and all these things. So I could probably name them for an hour, but those are the guys that have kind of really, really shaped me. But it all started with coaching, Tom. It all
Got
started with
it.
football.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Got it. So tell me this. What personal values have been with you from the start, and which ones of those have deepened over time?
I would say there's three. The personal value of having a relationship with Jesus has been there. I was in church 9 months before I was born. My mom is 77. She still plays the organ in the Baptist church. That part of my life has been a consistent and a constant. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tom, had I not had that, I'd probably been in a lot deeper, darker places. My dad dealt with addiction growing up. My sister dealt with addiction growing up. So I've seen that part of the world. Had I not had Jesus and that faith part, I don't know where I would be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's a diligence component, and that has been my word for this year. My diligence. I'm going back to that. There's a diligence component. There's a part of you that has to do stuff, even when you don't want to, and even when people are not watching. I'll give you a great example. I sometimes have a hard time spending money. Okay. My wife is a spender. Yesterday, I bought my wife a sweatshirt. I didn't really want to. You know why? My wife doesn't need a sweatshirt. But one of the ways she receives love is through gifts. I did it. Sometimes we got to do crap we don't want to do. And the diligence part of the work in our lives is this. It's like we talked about, I think, before we got on air. I'm not a hunter. My dad didn't take me hunting. I'm a hunter now. Why? Because my 14-year-old loves to hunt. We're going to go hunt this afternoon. There's probably more things I would like to do, but like, you know what? He loves that. So I'm going to do that thing. That's a diligent part of my life that like, I'm going to say, okay, I'm put things, selfish desires behind and go do this thing. The diligence part of work. Like last week at work, Tom wasn't great. I didn't feel like I make a bunch of progress. I didn't feel like I made an impact or whatever. Well, this week I feel like it's been totally different. Those days last week stacked on top of the days this week, and they're going to create a wonderful thing. So faith, number one, diligence, number two, and there's a hard work component that we all think we do. And I like to think that that's part of who I am. I enjoy working. I enjoy accomplishment. I enjoy those things. And so the hard work part of like doing things when we don't want to do it, but also spending the time to be great at whatever the thing is a component that I feel like I've built on. So those three things: faith, diligence, and hard work.
I love it. Diligence for me is the dirty dishes in the sink have got to be washed eventually. You can either do it now or later, and later they're going to be a little harder to clean. And that's a metaphor for life, I think, is for me anyway.
That's really good.
You're gonna have to get it done eventually. Don't let it get crusty and harder to clean.
That's right. That's a great illustration. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to know, is there some place where life has asked you to slow down recently?
About 4 years ago, I was working a lot, and I had 3 kids, and things were starting to pick up in my family. I wasn't around a lot. I went through those stages where I was around. I went through those stages where I was around. I was trying to grow from a business standpoint. I wasn't around a lot. I overhired. I felt like the Lord telling me I did need to slow down because I wasn't around much. My wife didn't complain about me being gone and working too much, but there were drips of her saying things, not in a rude way, but saying things that made me think, okay, all right. She said this more than once. I remembered it the last time. I need to do something. So what I did is I overhired. I hired somebody to do just certain things at work when I was running the catering business. And that helped me step away from that. I hired another person at work to help do these handful of things that I didn't want to do or didn't enjoy doing or took up a lot of my time so that I didn't have to do those things. So all that being said, about 4 or 5 years ago, I had to slow down because if I did, Tom, I was going to miss my kids' life. And I got a 17-year-old. She's going to be out of the house in about 2 years. And she just sat right here in this chair yesterday and she's having a hard time this week. And she just sat and cried. And she's a big girl. She's 6 foot, 165 pounds. She's a big volleyball player. And I sat here and I held her. I just pulled this chair back and I just sat and I held her. And I want to do that as much as I can. And had I worked, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have wife and kids, I'd make a lot more money. You know what I'm saying? Because I enjoy working. It probably to a fault sometimes. But when I get home, I'm just done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And so I don't want to miss those moments at all.
Yeah, what you're speaking to, Thomas, is what we teach at the Academy for Coaching Excellence, and I use it in my practice. Is there are 6 forms of energy: time, relationship, money, physical vitality, and there are a few others. And I think what happens is sometimes we think these things need to all be full. I look at them as tanks. And it's not about them all being full. It's about what's in excess and what is depleted. How do you achieve a balance? And it's interesting how what happens in one of them, if we're not using our energy of relationship as we should, it affects our energy of time, our energy of money. If we're not using our energy of physical vitality well enough, then we start seeing it bleed over into other places of how we keep this balance of these energies, I think, that happen in life. And one of the strong ones that people tend to forget to use is the energy of the support of others, which
Yeah.
is really, really critical. So tell me this.
Okay.
I want to know how your relationship with risk has changed as your responsibility has grown. You've got three kids, you've got these two businesses going, you're moving into new things and learning new things and growing and doing things. How has your relationship with risk changed as that has happened?
A really, really good question. As everybody can tell, these questions are not scripted. Um, I'm by nature a saver. Okay. I'm by nature a saver. And so I still have to fight that sometimes. But I think the more money you make, the more risk you're willing to take if you're if you have a if you don't have a greedy thought process. I don't feel like I'm a greedy person. Okay. But if I make more, I feel like I can take a little bit more risk with some of the things financially. But by nature, I am a saver. And that's been very, very difficult to let go of. So, how has my risk moved? I also think that risk increases with knowledge. Okay. So I was sitting with a guy yesterday, two days ago, Wednesday. And he makes about $2.5 million a year and has socked away money and cannot wrap his mind around investing in anything but the stock market because of the risk. Why is that? The reason is because doesn't understand that all risk has a table that you can measure. Okay, where is my protection in this thing? What happens if the worst situation that could happen? Okay, what is the worst situation that could happen in this situation? Is that bad? Is that going to just catastrophically ruin my life? No. Great. Let's look at it. What's the best that can happen? Now, also too, if the reward is extremely high and the risk is really, really low, sign me up 8 days a week and twice on Sunday. But if the risk is really, really like a bottom floor and the risk is not very high, like what are we doing? Like, why are we doing that? How has my risk changed? I think as you grow financially, you can either be a hoarder and hold on to it all, or you can be a little bit more liberal with it, but always know in the back of your mind that I've got this over here, that I'm protected. So from a risk standpoint, as far as like danger stuff in the world, my wife would tell you that my risk is extremely high. But the reason she thinks that way is because hers is just like totally changed since we've had kids. You know, before we had kids, we would jump off cliffs and go do these things and go do that stuff. And now she's just like, I don't know, Thomas. I don't know. I'm like, hey, we got it. We're good. But also there's a balance there. That's the balance between the two of us is I'm real risky and she's not very risky at all. And sometimes she saves us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a way to balance that out a little bit, I think. Yeah, right. A little bit of both makes a nice risk level somewhere
That's right.
in the journey. So tell me this, when does Thomas know when to pivot or push through?
Experience is a massive, massive guide in knowing when to pivot. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. So we started out this business meal planning. We did really well. We had thousands of clients in 27 countries at one point. Really well. So great business, extremely high margins. But at some point, technology and things started catching up to us. And you could, again, pull this thing out and have a meal plan in 45 seconds. Whereas I was providing a product that was obsolete. The question I said was, do I want to spend the cash and the knowledge and the time into making and catching up with technology? The answer was no. So I pivoted. Okay. I was doing meal prep. I was one of the first ones in my 2 little towns doing meal prep, and we were killing it, bro. We had a line out the door. Well, then as time passed on, they started doing these mass meal prep where they ship it to your house. I sit and ask a friend of mine who's shipping just hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of stuff through FedEx or VPS or whatever. And I just sat with her and I said, what are the economics look like? What does this look like? And she's like, and we just sat and just penciled it out, got on a whiteboard and penciled it out. It just didn't make sense. I was like, I don't want to be in that business. So what did I do? I pivoted. Okay. So I got out of that business. I owned a business in Costa Rica. I bought a wedding planning business in Costa Rica that was remote wedding planning, and it was going fine, but we didn't execute well. And I kept losing money. So I could either, the saying is don't throw good money after bad. And I just at some point I said, okay, stop. We got to pivot. We're done with this. Cut our losses at this point, and let's go do something else. I lost money, but I didn't want to just continue to lose money. I think when we look at numbers, and obviously I gave all business ideas, but when we look at things, we go, okay, I think there's number one, there's a numbers component, but then also two, there's an intrinsic component in your belly that says, hey, it's time to move on. And so I think the combination of both of those things,
Yes,
helps us make those pivot decisions.
absolutely. And then I find so many of my clients live in the past as if there's going to be a do-over, or if like our phones, when we watch a video that will go back 10 seconds as if life happens that. Once
Yeah.
you make those changes, you have to be willing, yes, to learn something from them, but let them go and keep moving.
Oh, absolutely. So another example is the learning process is we were doing some hard money, and we made a loan where we were second position. Well, I understood second position, but I thought I was secured. I didn't realize that if that property, I'm going to go technical on you, if that property went into foreclosure, whoever was first lien got the property, and whoever was second lien gets washed out because the person that quote owned the property didn't get anything. I didn't know that. Just sheer ignorance. And so we lost a pretty good bit of money. I know at this point, I can't tell you how many second lien deals I've turned down no matter what the percentage is. And some of those probably would have been okay, but I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm not doing that. I got burned about before. So I've
Yes.
learned to pivot away from that thing.
I love this story. So let me ask you this. Now, I'm not talking about you're in the woods and a bear starts chasing you. So it's not the kind of fear I'm talking about. But what I want to know is how you recognize fear as information versus a stop sign.
How do I know fear is information? No, stop. I think if you get to a fear standpoint in a life situation, in a business situation, the number one thing to do is to ask questions. I mean, find out more information. I sit there and I asked this guy the other day. The guy was pitching me on something, this project or whatever, and I just asked. I said, what questions am I not asking? What questions do other people that sit in my chair ask that I haven't asked? Good or bad? I want to know the good, but I also want to know the bad. And I hope I'm answering your question. I think sometimes you get scared or have that fear, and you go, all right, I'm good, I'm done. No, we're out. And then sometimes you get that fear, and you go, okay, let's ask some questions to see, is this something that I can mitigate the risk, or is this something that I just need to know more
Yeah.
information about? So
Yeah. I see fear as an opportunity for growth.
Absolutely.
That's how I see it. So tell me this, what are you most proud of? What impact are you most proud of? Not professionally, not publicly, but personally.
When you ask that question, my soul said my kids. I mean, I'm proud of my kids. I'm proud of the fact that they're good at things, but I'm just proud of my kids. You know, I'll give you a great example. This is a good and bad story. 2 days ago, this girl was making fun of my son's name's Tegan. 2 days ago, this girl in class was making fun of this little kid named Shaw. Tegan and Shaw are buddies. So this girl's picking on Shaw. This girl's picking on Shaw. Tegan's hearing it. Tegan's hearing it. Someone makes a comment, and then Tegan pops right back and makes a really, really rude comment to this girl. Okay. Tegan gets in trouble. I'm upset at the fact that he got in trouble, but I'm also proud of the fact that he stuck up for his
Yeah.
buddy. So the teacher made him write this 70 sentence something. I don't even know what it was. But guess what happened? Shaw said he would write half of it.
Amazing.
So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of. I hate the fact that my kid got punished because he did something he shouldn't do, but I'm proud of the fact that he stuck up for his buddy.
Yeah.
If that,
It's an amazing story. If we could all live our lives today, this world would be a very different place if we were willing to know that we may have something happen to us that feels like trouble, but somebody sticks up for us and helps us because we were there for them. There's a lesson there for us all. So, without a doubt, tell me this, Thomas, what boundary have you put in place that is essential to your sustainability?
two of them. Number one, my mornings are sacred. I need to be left alone. I got this revelation the other day, and I haven't told anybody this yet, Tom. I had this revelation of the day. I think that people in our society, and you've got friends and I've got friends, I think people in our society are, quote, I hate this word, I hardly ever use it, are busy or in this manic mode because people don't want to and are afraid of time by themselves. I think that everyone's got to have time by themselves every single day to think, to read, to reflect. Everybody's faith journey is different. Okay. Everybody's got some sort of faith in their life they believe in. I think that spending time in prayer or in faith or in meditation or whatever your thing is every day is incredibly important. But I also think I spend a lot of time by myself. I do. Like I spend a lot of time with people, but like today, I'm full of people today. I've got you. I've got someone right after you. I got someone at 10. I got someone at 12:30. I got someone at 3. I got a full day of people, but I've spent about 2 hours this morning by myself before I got to everybody else. I think that is incredibly, incredibly important, and people don't do it. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is I've got a handful of rules around my marriage. Okay, I never ride in a car with a lady, with a lady by myself. Never do it. Um, I I won't go out. I won't be in. I won't ever be in private with another lady, another female. Um, there's these handful of sets of rules that really protect us from a marriage standpoint that we try to live by. And they're just constant rules that kind of sound funny sometimes. But I get pushed back once a year when someone says, "Well, let's go over to so and so." Like, hey, I'll meet you over there. Like my whole team understands it and gets it.
Yeah.
They don't push
Yeah.
back at all. But that's just two examples of
I call that
parameters.
I call that respect.
Yeah.
That's what that falls in. And
Yeah.
I love this idea of taking time. I ensure that I have these times with myself to do my practices and things that I do. But I had this checkpoint recently. I was at my home on Maui and the internet went down for 26 hours. By hour 4, I was a madman. And then it turned into about hour five of me asking myself, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with
Yeah.
yourself? What are you going to do now that you can't do this busyness that you have going all the time and everything? And it was a really healthy thing that happened to me to have to check in and realize how connected we get and how these things that we are involved in take our time, our attention, our actual joy away at times. And that moment where there was nothing to do, I had
Right.
this feeling of not knowing how to fill it. Well, as you can imagine, you've known me a little bit now to know that I found a great way to fill it. But that moment was very telling for me in knowing
Yeah.
that I was getting sucked up into something that I needed to have a little check moment for. So I had to say thank you for that, right? That was
Thank you, Lord. That's
a
right.
moment of gratitude, right?
That's exactly right.
Because it's so important. Tell me this, Thomas, what does renewal look like for you beyond rest and time off? What does renewal? You just talked about it a little bit. Say more about what renews Thomas Cox.
I am a massive, massive proponent of the physical body and how much taking care of our body physically can renew us. So I am extremely, extremely diligent, probably to a fault, at exercise. I'm going to move every morning. Sometimes it's extremely difficult. I'm sweating my brains out, and there's all this. And sometimes it's 25 minutes of moving around. So a handful of things that occupy my life. Number one is every morning when I wake up, I go get in some sort of cold. It's 25 degrees here right now. I go get in the pool outside, or if it's in the summer, I get in a cold tub. It wakes me up. It renews my
Wow.
body. It renews my mind. It's 37 degrees in the water, something like that, every morning. The second thing is I then come and renew. The Bible's very clear, renewing our minds, using your word. So I do that. And then also my body, I exercise. So every day is a renewal. I'm also I sauna probably 3 or 4 nights a week. I love that. There's been a lot of stuff. We've been doing that for about 3 years now, and it started to get real popular the last couple of years. So I've been doing that. So I think when our bodies are renewed and our bodies are like working and functioning and healthy, we can be at our best because that energy that we have flows into everything that we do. So also there's a food component there. Not sure your thoughts on food and taking care of ourselves. I try to avoid a couple things. So I could get on my soapbox about this, Tom, and I'm not going to do it. But um, food is incredibly important. Food is incredibly important to who we are, to what we do. And there's so much out there. You pull these phones up, you pull up these screens, whatever, and everybody's talking about how if you just do this or add this to your life, it will make it better. Whether it be a weight loss shot, whether it be a pill, whether it be a practice, whether it be a something. Okay. I'm going to say this 99% of the time, Tom, us getting better is all we have to do is eliminate something from our life. Elimination will make us better than addition. Okay. Subtracting something from our life will make us better than adding something to our life. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, hey, Tom, you look great. How much weight have you lost? I'm about 22 pounds. What have you done? Nothing. All I did was eliminate Coca-Cola. Or all I did was eliminate this. So the things that I eliminate from a food standpoint is I try to avoid flour and I try to avoid sugar. Those are the two things. I don't limit myself on anything else really. If I can avoid flour and I can avoid sugar. I
Yeah.
don't eat a lot of rice and potatoes and things like that. I don't think they're bad. For me at 45, I don't. But if I can eliminate those two things in my diet, I think better, I feel better, my weight's down, all that stuff.
I love this. I'm a big believer, and I'm off the charts every test I've ever done with logic. And I'm going to give you a piece of logic about what you just said.
Okay.
If we look at the human body and what would happen to it without the process of elimination,
Hmm.
what you just said means a whole lot more because just
Oh,
look at what the natural state of things are. I haven't eaten meat in 52 years this year. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat carbs. I do like my coffee in the morning.
yep.
Um, I have been diligent about that, and I do take some supplements that I have over the years, but it has been primarily due to illnesses that I've had that I know cause a deficiency in some areas. But 52 years this year that I have not had meat in my life.
When you say meat, do you mean any kind of meat? Like what about fish or chicken?
I am a pescatarian, so
Pescatarian.
I eat seafood, but I have not had paw. What I like to say is I haven't had paws, claws, fur, or feathers in 52 years.
Yeah, so good. Wow.
Yeah,
What is your exercise regimen like, Tom? What do you do for in your exercise?
I have an avid Pilates practice. I'm actually what they call a Pilates advanced, and which means I could go become a practitioner and teach it.
Teach anywhere.
And
Yeah.
I walk about 5 or 6 miles a day.
Okay, let me ask you this question. This is turned into an interview for you. So, do you what are your thoughts on the craze of walking with a weighted vest? Because I've been into that for about 2 years now. What are your thoughts there?
On
Do you
walking for
like
what?
that? Walking with a weighted vest with weight, just walk because
Yeah,
that's what I do a lot of days.
yeah. I think that, depends on what your goal is because some of us are too thin to carry around a weighted vest because it's going to cause us to lose more weight. I used to weigh 300 pounds when I was a kid and I weigh about 150 now. I'm half of what I used to be. Well, if I carry around a weighted vest and lose any weight, I'm not going to look too good.
Sure, you're right. That's a
However,
good
if I'm
point.
strategic about it, I'm doing it, I'm wearing something in a way to build muscle, like wrist weights or something that's going to add some value. But I'm a big believer in it just as much as I am when it's cold, I put my heated vest on because what is the benefit to our body? What is it we're trying to achieve? Where are we trying to either improve, enhance, or sustain what we've built? So that's how I look at that. I think it's
That's good.
what I think where we get in trouble is what you were speaking to earlier when it becomes the fad du jour
Yeah,
and people who shouldn't be carrying around a weighted vest for a variety of reasons, including maybe your spine doesn't need the pressure or whatever, that you do it because you think it's going to help you without checking in, without asking yourself, what does this mean and how is this for me? I see the same thing about when people read business books
yeah,
over the years where they try and then emulate the author never works.
yeah.
You
You're
filter
right.
in what you learn and you put it out of through your own translation. So same kind of thing. Tell me
Yeah.
this, Thomas. What does legacy mean to you at the
Oh man,
stage in this stage of your life?
I love this topic. So we bought a place at the lake about 3.5 years ago, and you know me after talking to me and listening to me, I love real estate and I love like the deal and I love all that. But we bought this place and it was a crack house. They were running drugs out of this house. It smelled like a mix between dog piss and smoke. It was horrible. Okay, horrible. But we bought this place, put some money into it. But what I see there is I see my grandkids learning to swim there. I see family reunions at this place. I see New Year's Eve at this place. I see summer retreats with my family. And I see that. That is what I see. I see legacy. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is the Bible is really clear in a verse in Proverbs. It says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Okay. Warren Buffett said, leave your kids enough to do anything, but don't leave them enough to do so they don't have to do nothing. Those two statements, that Bible verse and Warren Buffett. I know I'm putting God and Warren Buffett in the same sentence, but I shouldn't. But it's both wise. So What does legacy mean? Legacy means passing on something so that the generation behind me is better than what I did. And most of the time, people don't want other people to be better than they are. There are not many people that want Jonna to be better. Jonna's my 17-year-old. Jonna to be better than them. But there's two people that do, her mom and her dad. I want my kids to be better than me. I want Tegan to be better at football than me. I want Tegan to be better at finance than me. I want Jonna to be better at finance. I want Jonna to be a better human than me. I want her to love people better than me. So I want to create a place where I give all my kids all the advantages in order to be better at things than me, not just monetarily, but spiritually, lovingly, giving, all of those things. I want to create a space for that. So number one, like our lake place. I don't know that I'll ever sell it. If I wanted to, I could, but I don't know that I ever will. Number one. Number two, we've set a trust up in our house financially to where my kids don't, it's also a protection thing. Let me go back to that. I want to set them up to be better than me, but I also want to set my kids up and protect them so that they don't have the option to do, they don't have the, because we all go through bad stages in our life. They don't have the option to make crazy decisions. Okay. So I've set a trust up in our family to where something happens to me or my wife, that my kids will be more than taken care of, but not enough to where they don't have to work. But it also protects them so that they don't have access to gazillions of dollars that they can just blow it on, blowing hookers. You know what I'm saying? So legacy, I love the question because but I've also spent a ton of time on that in the last probably year.
Yes.
So it's very important.
It evolves over time. I have thought about it. I'm a philanthropist, and I've been asked that question, and I finally came to a realization that it's not about me. It's the things that I'm doing and the things I'm influencing through my work that continue on after I'm gone. There will be a day when no one will remember who I was. No one will remember who we are. We remember who Abraham Lincoln is because there's a reason. But at some point, 50, 100 years from now, nobody's going to remember who we are, but they can. Totally. The legacy of what we were doing can carry on. I have one final question for you today.
Yeah, sure.
If your younger self, a little Thomas Cox, were listening to this podcast, what would you tell him?
Keep going. Keep going. Don't be discouraged by the negative things that come up in your life. Keep going. The stacking of days is what's going to make you happy. It's what's going to create joy. It's what's going to create wealth. It's what's going to create smiles. Keep stacking days on top of each other. Even when, and I told my kids this last night, we sat last night and we prayed for each other last night. And I just said, bad times are going to come. But sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. Not because we want to, but because we're called to do those things. And so I would tell Thomas, keep going, keep stacking the days on top of each other. And at some point, it will be worth it. But if it's always worth it, if it's always sunshine and rainbows, it doesn't create enough callus, it doesn't create enough friction, it doesn't create enough muscle in order to deal with the bad times that are going to come at some point again. Because here's the way it goes. It goes like this.
You and I speak the same language.
It goes like this. Here's the thing. I'm going to leave you this last illustration. We all go through mountains, peaks, and valleys. But in Colorado, there's a point, or in every mountain range, there's a point where life ceases to exist. It's called tree line. Anything above that tree line, there's no growth. But where it's green and lush and like life-giving and thriving is in the valley. It's where the water flows. It's where the sun hits and the sun fades. It's where there's life and just vitality. So what does that say? It says that the growth that we're going to happen is going to happen in the valley. But at some point, that growth is going to get us to the peak. And so I even forgot your question. Oh, yeah, the youngest Thomas Cox. That's what I would, that's the thought and advice I would.
We are preaching the same stuff. When people in my practice tell me life is like this, that looks like a flat line to me. I see these valleys and peaks. This valley is the opportunity to grow and learn and gain wisdom. Here's a place to express it and use it, knowing that life being life, if you are really living life, there's going to be another one of those moments to learn and grow. Thomas Cox Capital, Table and Time. I'm a richer man for knowing you, Thomas Cox. Thank you for being on Opening Pathways.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It's been great. Love you.
How can we find you?
My website's thomascox.co. thomascox.co. There's so many things on there, from what we do, raising money with our funds to infinite banking, and our podcast is on there. So, and you can reach me on that side if you need to get in touch with me, just want to talk, whatever. I'm here, very, very open and an open book for everybody.
Great. Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, Tom.
And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble on Opening Pathways. I'll see you next time.